Why, hello there, everyone. You might already know, based on the information in the dev blog that I retweeted the other day, that there is going to be a balance patch, the first actual post-launch balance patch in Gundam Evolution on the 26th. And keep in mind, I'm recording this while streaming at the same time because I thought I might as well knock out two birds with one stone here. Hence the overlay. But I wanted to go over this before I started playing, because I actually read the dev blog on the 21st when they posted the dev blog, and in said dev blog, they mentioned that they would be releasing the actual patch notes on the 21st. And even though it was the 21st, I assumed, because I couldn't find it, that they were going to release it sometime within that 24-hour period, right? But I still couldn't find it even today, which is the 23rd. So I thought I must have missed it, right? Lo and behold, I did miss it. It was kind of hard to find. You had to click on several things to actually navigate to it. So I want to go over this and read this for people just in case they couldn't find it either, right? Or in case people just didn't know about it. So even though there is going to be the big update, which adds new suits 2 months post-launch, this is essentially like the halfway patch, and it's going to have some stuff. They're adding some things to the loot boxes and stuff, but I'm kind of skipping that because that doesn't really alleviate my grievances with how they're doing the monetization, right? That would deserve its own video. Here's the preface, or the preface, which you can read yourself, right? But I'm trying not to waste your time. So let's just skip to the rebalancing goals. So I'm mostly going over the balances here, right? The bug fixes are different, right? There are a whole bunch of miscellaneous bugs that they're going to be fixing over time. I'm not too concerned about that, right? I'm more interested in the balancing here. So the rebalancing goals. So these are some general changes, and then we'll get down to the specific changes to specific suits. So firstly, the impact of melee suits, especially Exia and the melee Zaku, on matches has been higher than expected, as they have a 2 to 3% higher win rate than ranged units. Not surprising, right? I'm sure most people are aware of how strong the melee suits are still, right? It used to be Barbatos, but since they nerfed Barbatos, like I was warning people, I think the Exia is going to be really good once they nerf Barbatos, right? Because then the Exia is going to be just as good, if not better, in terms of being the melee suit, right? But I actually think the melee Zaku is more of an issue than Exia, leading us to believe that they need to be tweaked, okay? These units have great abilities, but we must also consider the skill cap of the players using them as well, right? So obviously some of these suits are going to have different win rates at different elos, right? As such, we will only tune down their abilities slightly. Okay, so they're basically just saying they don't want to do anything drastic. Makes sense, right? The game hasn't been out that long. And melee Zaku, if you're counting the game being played during the playtest, then melee Zaku has been out even less time than the Exia, right? So I think it's smart they're not doing anything drastic. Conversely, so this is about the range units. Conversely, we also believe that range units somewhat lack the ability to affect the tides of battle, which is a big deal because the majority of the suits in this game are ranged, right? And they are supposed to be the meta, and the melee suits are supposed to be this off-meta, anti-meta type thing. Like the anomaly, right? They're not supposed to rule the meta. So we are increasing the overall ammunition count for the main weapons of units to increase their ability to continue fighting and provide them the tools to finish off an enemy they run into in a single encounter. Finally, I was mostly complaining about the Zaku's limited ammo count, right? But that sort of can apply to everyone at the same time. It constantly feels as if you're having to reload, and whenever you're getting run down by a melee suit, it's a big deal. So the fact that they're just increasing the main ammo count across the board is pretty nice. So those are the universal things, right? So here are the specific balance changes. For Pale Rider, the Hades system was outputting much more damage than other G maneuvers, so we increased its activation threshold to lower the frequency of its use. Okay, I actually do typically advocate for just decreasing the frequency of something rather than the actual effectiveness of it, right? Because if they made it weaker, that would make it less fun to play, right? But if they just made it less frequent, the ult is still just as fun to use. So I think that's a good way to do it. Its general performance also outclassed other range units, so it will not be receiving an increased main weapon ammunition count to maintain balance. Okay, so everyone but Pale Rider is getting an increased ammo count, right? But that's fine because I think Pale Rider had a fine enough ammo count as it was already, or as it is already. The duration of its EMP grenade's slow effect will be extended to give more of a fighting chance against melee units. This is good too, because literally the whole time I've been saying that grenades feel weak in this game, and it hurts Pale Rider especially because Pale Rider's whole kit kind of revolves around the grenades, right? The EMP grenade is supposed to slow them down, and that's kind of the linchpin of his whole combo. And so I think increasing the AoE of that is good. However, extending the current effect would make it too powerful. Yeah, so the debuff itself will be slightly reduced. I think that makes sense, right? Because the slow is pretty significant. It's just that it's so hard to actually hit someone with it. So increasing the AoE in exchange for decreasing the significance of the slow, I think that's good. And you can see the exact stats here. So Gundam RX-78-2 is getting 1 extra ammo count on its main weapon from 7 to 8, right? 1 might not sound that significant, but when you see it normally only has 7, 7 to 8 is pretty significant, right? That's bigger than a 10% increase. For Sazabi, the immediate damage of the beam shot rifle was too powerful at close range. I can kind of agree with that. I don't think it was that big of a deal, though, because it gave the Sazabi a way to defend itself from melee suits trying to rush it down, right? Especially Barbatos, because Barbatos can just break his shield, right? So it kind of gave the Sazabi an opportunity to outplay a rushdown Barb, but I think that's okay either way. So it has been slightly reduced. On the other hand, with ranged units getting more ammunition, we foresee its shield being broken faster. So we increased the range of damage fall off, allowing you to shoot further than before in battle. So if I'm understanding this correctly, even though it's worded a little weirdly, so it was smart of them to realize that shield units would be getting indirectly nerfed if all range units are getting extra ammo, right? Because it means they could be shooting the shields more often. So when they say increased the range of damage fall off, I think that means the damage doesn't fall off until further, right? Like the damage can travel, projectiles can travel further before they start having damage fall off, right? Let me know if I'm misinterpreting this, because I could kind of see this being interpreted differently possibly. But this is to allow the Sazabi to shoot from further away than before, right? So they're effectively nerfing the damage of the shotgun at close range, but they are allowing the shotgun to be a bit more effective at maybe mid to far range, right? So that way the Sazabi can defend itself against units that are gunning down its shield and outranging the Sazabi. I think that is the purpose of that. So you can see the damage was reduced just a little bit. It's really not that significant. Fall off start distance. Yeah, so I think this would imply that, I don't know what these measurements actually are, right? But it went 500 something before it started experiencing damage fall off, right? And now it's 600. And then the end distance from 1400 to 1500. Maybe that's the maximum damage fall off it can get, and then past 1500, whatever, it won't decrease anymore, right? Because damage has to always do, or projectiles have to always do some kind of minimum damage, at the very least, right? Methis getting its ammo increased from 12 to 14. I wonder if them not mentioning Sazabi's ammo increase means that it's not getting an ammo increase at all because of the other changes they did, right? Gem Sniper, ammo increase. I don't know if I particularly enjoy that one just because it's the Gem Sniper. Then Asimar from 27 to 33. That's pretty significant because the Asimar gun is a 3-round burst. It's a 3-round burst. So it's getting 6 extra ammo, but that's really just 2 extra clicks, right? Because 27 to 30 would be 1 click, and then 30 to 33 would be 2 extra clicks, right? So this might seem significant, and it is, but keep in mind that the Asimar is going to need 3 per click. So I think they could actually make that go higher if they need to. I still think the Asimar is kind of a weird pick in this game. Kind of a niche pick. Dom Trooper from 7 to 8, nice. That's just like the RX-78 going from 7 to 8. Turn A going from 10 to 12, that is pretty significant as well. So that's a 20% increase. The Gem, okay. As with the Sazabi, we foresee the Gem's shield breaking faster with ranged units gaining additional ammunition, so we increase the range of damage fall off. Same logic with the Sazabi, right? By changing the above, there would be a difference in the effective ranges of the detonator bomb and the beam spray gun. So I think what they're saying here is if they increase the effective range of the beam spray gun, which is the pistol, by proxy, the, what do they call it? Detonator bomb, the C4. By proxy, the C4 would be shorter range, right? Because, well, maybe not by proxy, but just the ratio would be bigger, right? The C4 would have a much more significantly shorter range than the beam pistol, now that the beam pistol can effectively be used from a greater range, which are both often used at close range, right? Because they saw that they were both often used together. To combat this, we will increase the throwing speed and range of the detonator bomb, the C4, allowing it to be thrown within the new effective range of the beam spray gun. So they are proportionately increasing the range of the C4 throw, and also the speed of it. Even though right here it only mentions the speed, it doesn't show the distance. But I think the reason why it's only showing the speed here is I think that by increasing the speed value, that by proxy makes it get thrown farther. I think that's how the values are working in this. So I think that's actually pretty big. I would have made it, as I was saying in my initial impressions video back during the playtest, I think they should just make it where the C4 detonates faster after pressing the detonate button. I think you should be able to use it on reaction more easily if someone walks by it or on it. But this is still pretty nice because this is effectively going to let you kind of throw it behind cover, use it more like a grenade than an actual C4. But based on what they were saying here, it seemed as if the majority of times people using it was in a case like that, using it like a grenade instead of C4, right? Exia, the ability that starts its combo, the Gian Sword, Rush, and Slash, deals 20% more damage in a certain time frame on average than expected, right? This isn't a buff. They're saying it's doing about 20% more damage than expected, so they have brought it closer to their expectations. So in other words, they just nerfed its damage a little bit for its combo starter, the Gian Sword Rush, and they also increased its cooldown as well. Marsai. I thought this one was probably the most unexpected change in the patch notes. So compared to other units, the stats for the Marsai did not steer too far from expectations. Okay, what's the issue then? But with just one combo, it could almost always disable an enemy unit, boosting its kill numbers. Yeah, so again, I think the Marsai needs to be reworked because it is, in my opinion, it's pretty hard to land a hook, right? But the issue is that when you do land a hook, it leads to a touch of death combo, right? Especially if you have your ult. So if you get hooked, you're just going to randomly get hooked and then pulled in, and there's zero counterplay, right? So it's weird because when the Marsai is doing its thing, it has no counterplay. But then when it's not doing its thing, it's just standing around and doing nothing, missing hooks, right? So I think it's definitely going to be the hardest suit to balance for a while, at least until they rework its kit and give it a bit more synergy, a bit less one note, right? But let's keep reading. It could almost always disable an enemy unit, yeah, boosting its kill numbers. To combat this, we will be reducing the speed of the first move of its combo, the Sea Snake, Ensnare, the hook. So this is hilarious because they literally just buffed his hook. In between the playtest and the launch version of the game, they buffed it because in the playtest it was kind of slow and they increased the speed for the launch version of the game, but now they're immediately backpedaling and slowing down the hook again. We don't expect this adjustment to affect Marsai's abilities at close range, but it might require more skill to land the ability at longer distances. So maybe people actually just got good at landing the hook now that he's been buffed. I have played all of the suits post-launch, right? So I have experienced firsthand the buffs that all these suits got, but I can't say I ever really played Marsai a lot in an actual match. I mostly just played it to knock out the dailies, right? Because I still thought the hook was hard to land, but maybe people playing Marsai exclusively have gotten really good at it. Because I actually played against a couple of Marsais that just kept on hooking me, and every time they would get me, it would surprise me so much because I didn't think they could get me from that far away, but lo and behold, they yoink me from like halfway across the map. And like I said, there's no counterplay. You just have to hope your team puts in the work while you're waiting to just die from the TOD combo and then come back after respawning. So they decreased the speed from 7,500 to 500 5,000, 1,500. That's pretty significant. So they're pretty much just fully backpedaling on that buff. But if I need to go and see I need to see how significant the buff was in between the playtest and the launch version, because I'm curious if this brings it back to how weak it was in the playtest, or if this is still better than the playtest, right? Because if this is how slow it was in the playtest, then it's going to be an underpowered unit again, at least according to them, if they're using the same philosophy as last time. The Mihiru, this is going to be another weird one to balance. So operating Mihiru requires an understanding of the maps. I agree, and in the higher tiers of ranked play, the average damage of its main weapon, the Rendo grenade, I don't remember if they ever said what it's called in Turn A. Rendo grenade comes in second only to Pale Rider. Taking its current state into consideration, we will forego changes to its main weapon to avoid disrupting the balance. I think that's smart because, like they said, the Mihiru is pretty dependent upon how familiar with the maps the player is, right? Because you're able to ricochet the grenades off of walls. So knowing where enemy players tend to hide behind cover, and knowing where you can ricochet the grenades to send the grenades behind said cover is a pretty inherent part to the Mihiru's kit, right? And so that is naturally going to mean it's a more effective mobile suit at high ranks, and it's going to be not as good at low ranks, right? But also, it could just mean that people need to have more time familiarizing themselves with the maps before actually getting a good assessment of how good the Mihiru is. So I think it is smart that they are waiting on changing that. However, the fact remains that this unit's win ratio and damage inflicted are lower than expected. I can see that too, because I really do think the Mihiru is underpowered, right? I don't want to be hasty and say it needs to be buffed big time, but I do think it's underpowered, and I think there's rarely ever a reason to use it, because it's such a niche pick already, and even then, a lot of other units can just do more damage more easily, right? Like, do more damage or just as much damage for less work. Therefore, we are implementing basic changes to improve its playability, such as reducing the cooldown for forward flip kick, nice, and toroidal... Yeah, that's an I. Toroidal shield with internal mega particle cannon and boosting the damage of its G maneuver. So it's pretty much getting everything buffed aside from its main gun, right? So the cooldown reduced from 6 seconds to 5 seconds. That's pretty big. Cooldown reduced on the toroidal shield. I think this ability actually needs to be buffed big time. The cooldown is reduced from 12 to 10 seconds, which is significant. But even then, I found it rarely ever worth using because it locks you in place, which makes you very vulnerable, right? So even with the cooldown being reduced, I don't think I would ever use it more often. I think the actual properties of the move itself need to be reworked in some kind of way. You can use it in the air, and it holds you in the air, and I think maybe higher level players would be able to come up with a way to sort of fake out your landing timing, a la Gundam Versus with it. But even then, it takes so long for the damage to actually proc. You're not really going to hit anybody with this ability unless they're just not paying attention, right? Or unless you're comboing it with a teammate that somehow CC'd them. So maybe it's better in pre-mades, right? If you have good communication with your whole team. The grenade rush. After splitting, damage increased. This is the ult. Yeah, this is the G maneuver. This isn't the regular shot. I think the rush implies that this is G maneuver, right? Because they're mentioning the G maneuver here. So they increased the damage of the ult. Okay, so yeah, like I said, everything but the regular main fire. So I'm interested to see if that makes it actually a decent mobile suit, right? At least statistically speaking, if it has a 50% win rate after this. Zaku 2 melee, this is another big thing. So I was kind of iffy on the Zaku melee. Originally, I thought he felt kind of underwhelming until I realized just how powerful his ult is, and also since it kind of clicked in my mind that you're not really supposed to play him like an assassin, you're supposed to play him like a pest. You just stay alive a really long time because of all the shields you can get, right? And I have been putting in so much work with Zaku Melee just because it's so easy to turn things around for your team with him, mostly because of the ult, right? If you're able to be patient with your ult and use it at good times to sync up with your rage being filled up, then it doesn't matter how hard your team is losing a team fight, that ult will turn the tables. So that is the biggest thing they need to balance. I was actually talking about this on the last stream. In higher tiers of ranked games, this unit does not dominate others in terms of damage output. Okay, but we have decided that it's G maneuver, large heat hawk, rotating slash. Yeah, the spin to win the Beyblade is too powerful and can turn the tides of battle in an instant. Yeah. We will not change its duration, but we determined it would be more satisfying to tune the damage output and give the enemy team a better chance to take down a Zaku 2 melee during its G maneuver. So on the last stream, I was actually suggesting that they reduce its duration, so that way it wouldn't be doing any less damage, so that way it could still kill opponents just as quickly, right? But it's just that it lasts so long, and your movement speed is so fast when you're spinning, it feels impossible to escape a melee Zaku, right? If you're in a team fight and an enemy melee Zaku uses its ult and it wants to go to you, it will go to you. The only kind of counterplay, aside from just shooting at it, right? But if it's actually timing it with its shields well, you can't really just shoot it and eliminate it quickly. So realistically, your only counterplay against a melee Zaku ulting is to CC him, right? But there aren't really that many CC abilities in the game, so it rarely happens. So I was thinking maybe decrease the speed, or maybe make it where it won't last so long, so that way he can't just cover the entire map's distance at will, right? But they did the opposite. They kept the duration, but they have it doing less damage. So it's still going to be super oppressive, because if you get hit, you get knocked back, right? So it's still going to be extremely strong in areas with walls, right? In indoor areas. Effective range. Oh, they reduced the range too. The concept behind the Zaku 2 melee design was to have it be close range. Yeah, oh yeah. This is the regular attack. Okay. I read this earlier, but I kind of just glanced over it because I wanted to read it in depth for this video, right? The concept behind the Zaku 2 melee design was to have it be a close range combat unit. Duh. But its main weapon, the large heat hawk slash, worked at long range, you don't say. We will be adjusting the range of the weapon so it is most effective at mid-range. So they're reducing the range a little bit. This is actually such funny timing because on the last stream, I was playing with my brother and we were on the harbor map, and my brother was playing Preface, okay? And I literally saw him in the air flying, right? Flying around, shooting enemies, healing someone. And I saw the slashes from the melee Zaku go up into the air and anti-air my brother out of the sky. And it just exploded him out of the air. He was getting anti-aired by a melee suit, right? Which is pretty ridiculous. And it was so funny because I couldn't see where the melee Zaku was because of all the buildings at the start of the harbor map. So the timing of that is pretty funny. I'm sure he's going to be happy to hear that the range is reduced, right? It's still pretty good. It's not that significant. It is significant, but I don't think this is going to make it feel weak by any means, because it did have a surprisingly large range, and I think this is just going to make it feel more accurate to what you would expect it to be initially. And then, like I was talking about with the ult, so decreasing the damage quite a bit, actually. So I don't think that's really going to be that big of a deal, because again, like I said, you move so far and so fast and it knocks enemies back. I think you can still pretty much dominate a whole team fight with that, because it's never really about the damage. Well, it kind of is, but you blow them up so quickly with this anyway. If it's lasting just as long, that'll give you ample opportunity to explode them still, right? So I think the main point is that it'll give the enemy team a little bit more time to CC you, maybe, but I don't think people are really good at that yet anyway. Unicorn Gundam, increasing the ammo from 50 to 55, nice. And then there's some matchmaking stuff. They're going to be a bit more strict because they were giving people the benefit of the doubt for a while. With the game being new, they knew that there were some bugs and stuff, communication errors with the servers, people getting bumped out. But basically, they think that they have fixed that enough now that they can go back to being strict. And then they're going to be working on the matchmaking system later. But I mostly wanted to talk about the balance changes, right? So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if I misinterpreted something there, since they do word it kind of strangely. But I think for the most part, I understood it pretty well. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know if you agree with the nerfs and buffs, and let me know if you have any predictions on what will happen. Maybe the Mihiru will end up being OP. Who knows? So, all that said, I will see you guys later, and bye for now.